This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to Local Everywhere. I'm Cynthia Pooler, and I'm going to be speaking with a young woman from Alaska today because I'm in New York, and I'm going to talk to Vera Maris, and she owns a bookstore in Alaska, and it seems like a great community enterprise. So tell us a little bit about your bookstore and why you started it.
We are the Writer's Block Bookstore and Cafe located in Anchorage, Alaska, in Spenard. Um, I came up with the concept somewhere in 2013, 2014, and it took us a number of years to put it together. There are four owners altogether. I'm the majority owner. I have three other partners, one silent partner and two very vocal partners.
Hmm.
Uh, and and we started this because at that time, one of the main venues for creative spaces had closed down, and there really wasn't anything else in Anchorage that supported local writers, artists, musicians, etc. So I thought of, how can we bring an independent bookstore to Anchorage where there wasn't any focusing on new books? We have a fabulous used bookstore, Tidal Wave Books, but they don't do author events. They don't do a lot of other things. They're a wonderful bookstore, but they do what they do very well. But there wasn't a space or a venue that really catered to the creative community that we have here, which is extensive. So I tried to mash up all of the different ideas that we had. Bookstore, but we needed something that would also be able to earn money more than a bookstore could, given the history of bookstores, so much going out of business over the
Mhm.
past years. So we thought, well, we'll have a cafe. Um, so we have our full restaurant, and then that spilled into, what if we make it also a music venue? So we got a beer and wine license, and built a stage, which is behind me.
Wow.
Um, and so it kind of spiraled out from there. And then in 2015, we purchased the property. The the story behind the place is that this particular property sits in what was the last vestige of the what used to be the red light district during the oil boom days. And this particular spot was the last vestige of really seedy pornography. This was a porn store and associated with some pretty horrible things. So when we bought the property, we spent a few years cleaning up the old building. This building is brand new. We tore the old building down, but while we were waiting for all of our permits and whatnot, we worked with about 30 artists who then every month for a very long time, it seemed like an eternity, but it was really about 2.5 years, took over the building, and turned the building into sort of a living art sculptural event space
Mhm.
before the main construction. And it led to a summer event called Transforming Adults Only, which was the name of the previous establishment that was here. It was called Adults Only.
Oh, wow.
So we had this huge neighborhood interaction, and then we donated the remnants of the building to the SWAT team, and they did their explosives testing on the building as part of our
Mhm.
demolition. So
Mhm.
um, and then the building came down and this new one came in, and we kind of opened a new chapter in the neighborhood where it's a family friendly bookstore and environment that has, terrific books, live poetry events, poetry slams and readings, um, speaking panels with writers, both visiting writers and local writers, and with musicians, both local and also visiting musicians. So it's been quite an epic adventure. I definitely couldn't have done it without my partners, in particular my two very vocal partners, Tika Ballas and Donnell Smith, who have handled all of our events and web page and social media and so many behind the scenes things, so that I can be present daily in the bookstore to do the daily operations. Um, so it's been a pretty wild and fun adventure. It's,
When you do your artist events, like for your musicians, do you record it and put it on a YouTube channel?
we don't yet. We have live streamed events. We have done some releases, I think, on Facebook. I honestly don't handle a lot of our social media because I'm a technical Luddite. Uh, and, I don't even have a real TV at home. And I don't have any social media presence for myself. So I'm
Wow.
largely kind of in the bubble of this building, of the confines of these walls.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm delighted that there are other people who work for us and with us that do all of those things for us. So I know we have a lot of recorded events, but I don't actually know the means
Uh-huh.
of how
Now,
they come into the world.
when you have artists from outside your community, where are they usually from?
So a lot of times what happens, especially with writers, is that they have uh, a connection to Alaska in some way. And they're either coming up on vacation or they're coming up for the Kachemak Bay Writers Conference or to the um, uh, writers writers retreat. There's a number of venues that they come in from. Um, and we try to pair them with a local writer if we're doing an event, because Alaska is very local centric. So unfortunately, we have a ton of phenomenal writers who live right here in Anchorage, and people just don't realize that they live here in
Mm-hmm.
town. They read their books, they buy their books, they see them, on the best-selling list, but they don't realize that they're actually right here in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do get a visiting writer, we had a lovely, lovely writer, Jamaica Baldwin, who came up from Nebraska. Um, and we paired her with other poets so that there was both an outside draw and a local draw. And both of them did a, speaking panel and a reading. And it's a really nice way to pair events.
That really sounds exciting. So I would think that planning your artist events must take up an awful lot of your time.
Well, fortunately, again, I have two lovely ladies who are my partners who take on the lion's share of that planning. Um, and it is a lot of work, but it's worth it, because this tiny little bookstore um, has become an ingrained part of the community. In our we're not even 5 years old yet. We turned 5 in January.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in this brief period of time that we've been in existence, we have become a part of our community where people really look here to be connected with, with their creative community, with each other, to have the conversations about the weighty matters of the world in a safe and welcoming and cozy space. So, as much work as it is, um, to field the phone calls and reply, respond to the emails and organize the calendar and come up with the ideas for the events. Um, every day we hear from people who come in here how much they love the space and how much they appreciate what we do. So we will keep doing it.
What kind of books do you sell?
So we have a pretty wide selection. We sell everything from cookbooks to poetry. We have a lovely poetry section. We sell young adult books. We have literary fiction. We have memoirs and biographies, some politics, a lot of nature and hiking, and a lot of things that people, especially during the summer, are looking for: where to go in Alaska, what to see.
Mhm.
What we don't do, though, because we're small, we don't have 5,000 square feet. Our bookstore space is a little under 1,500 square feet, so it's not massive. We can't carry everything, so we do not carry any books about religion, either in support of or downing. We don't carry it.
Uh-huh.
We don't tend to do a lot of self-help books, um, psychology books, that kind of thing, and we don't do any textbooks or academic books. Beyond writing books, we do have some books geared towards budding writers who are looking for, good good reference books for how to get their projects off the ground, that kind of thing. But children's books, we have a fantastic children's books section. So we do a little bit of everything, but not a lot. Everything we do is geared towards being the highest quality of what it is.
Mhm.
And one thing we tell people when they come in is, if you're looking for a very specific book, we might not have it. But if you're looking for an excellent book, we guarantee you'll find it. We'll absolutely guarantee you'll find it.
So since your space is not very big, when you have an artist evening, you can only allow a limited amount of people to see who your featured artist is, right?
Right, right. So our capacity is an interesting thing because, we've had this pandemic for the last few years,
Right.
which greatly limited our capacity, which was okay. It needed to be that way, to protect both our staff and our community. So pre-pandemic, our capacity for seated capacity was about 50 people. If we were doing an event that we knew was going to be packed, standing room only, we could put up to 92 people in here. Recently, we've started bringing back events that are a little more crowded, than they have been. We've also done a lot of outdoor events in the summertime. So we
Mhm.
built out a deck and a patio, and we had our state writer laureate, Heather Lindy, last October, a year ago, do an outdoor fireside chat. In the middle of winter, it was, 26 degrees on a day, much like today, 26 degrees and snowing. But we had all these fire pits out there for people to warm, and it was an incredible event. It was completely packed house outside. And Alaskans are tough people, so everybody came bundled up with their coats and parkas and winter gear, and everybody sipped hot cocoa and coffee, and or their favorite adult beverage as well. And we had some fantastic outdoor events. So we've tried to flex to bring in as many people as we can safely. And now this is the first time we've brought back our monthly poetry slam, where we do $100 cash prize. And we've been doing that indoors, and it's been really fun to see people coming back out, and getting re-engaged with the space, because it's a nice space to be in.
So today is November 8th. It's quite okay where I am. It's around 50 degrees. Did you say it was snowing where you are?
Yeah, we started getting snow a couple weeks ago, and the snow will stick around until the end of April or May.
Really?
So
So when
today
you
it's on and off snow.
so when you get a storm, people think of Alaska as like this really frigid place. When you get a storm, what's the average snowfall?
So here in Anchorage, we're on the drier side of the mountain range. Um, so our typical snowfalls will just be, maybe anywhere between, 1 to 6 inches of snow at any given time. But
Okay.
uh, nothing stops moving here for the weather. Our poor kids don't get snow days. Our poor kids,
Really?
they rarely get snow days. They do occasionally in the spring get ice days, where the temperatures warm up and
Uh,
the roads become icy as opposed to just snowy. Uh,
oh,
but typically from here until spring, whether it snows, whether it's a big snow or a small snow, life just goes on. And we have a pretty fine-tuned road maintenance, regimen. I mean, they're out, the plows are out all the time, keeping things open. So, if you're going to live, in a subarctic region, it's good that they keep things moving. So, I think if you're going to live in Alaska, you got to embrace winter.
Now, what's the biggest snowfall you could ever remember?
It was a few years ago, and the whole year was an extraordinary. I think it was in 2000. I want to say it was in 2013. I could be off on the year, but the snow had piled up so much that from my roof, like from all the shoveling of snow from my roof, I could walk from my roof out onto the snow. I would have fallen, through the snow, but
Right.
we had over 140 inches of snow that year. And each snowstorm seemed to bring like 8 to 10 inches of snow that year. It was such a snowy year. It was a record year. But it was still kind of fun, and everything still kept moving along, but the snow berms on the side of the roads pile
Right.
up, and everybody's driveways where you've plowed out, the snow berms on the side are very, very tall.
Did you ever hold an event during a snowstorm?
Well, so we have over the last 5 years. Like I said, nothing stops for the weather. In fact, the worse the weather is, the busier we get, which is
Wow.
kind of an odd thing. If in the summertime, if it's a sunny 70-degree day, it'll be dead, slow, because everybody's going to be out playing in the mountains. But if it is cold and rainy and dreary, or if it is super snowy and the roads are yet to be plowed, for some reason we will find ourselves very, very busy. So, come snow, come rain, come sleet, we're open, we're here. And, I think we just live in an area where weather just is largely not a factor in terms of what keeps people moving around. Businesses stay open, restaurants stay open. It would have to be a pretty epic, biblically epic snowfall for things to stop moving here.
So has the Nook and the Kindle put a damper on your sales?
I don't think so. Yeah, I remember I've been in and around books and the book business pretty much my entire life. I come from a family of writers, and I worked as a book designer for a publishing house for a number of years. And what I know to be true is that all the Kindle and the Nook and whatever e-readers people are using, what they did was they opened up reading to a larger audience. And the larger the audience is for reading, whatever the age, it ultimately has an impact on the physical book sales. You can't give a Kindle as a gift to somebody. Well, you can, but if there's a fabulous new book by Octavia Butler that comes out, you want to hold that graphic novel in your hand. You don't want to see it digitally. Now, you might read the book digitally, that's fine. But chances are, if you're really a book lover, you want all of it. You want both the digital and the print. And they serve their purposes, right? If you're traveling on a plane, for example, and you don't, if you're like me, you travel with, a whole bag full of nothing but books, well, they can be very heavy. And with limited space allowed on airplanes these days, a lot of people opt for the e-readers. Perfectly fine. Absolutely. There was a time when people were really worried about how ebooks were going to affect the book market. And I think, like any new technology, there's kind of an excitement that comes with it. And then that's the trend. Everybody's going to e-readers. Nobody wants print books. It's the death of the book. I heard this so many times. It's the death of paper. But it really wasn't. It spiked up, but now it's leveled off. And now it's just become part of how we read and absorb information. You might want to read things that are, mundane on your e-reader. Why would you want to spend the money on, a hardcover edition for something that is sort of everyday reading? But when you want something special, you want the book. When a new book comes out, you get, brand new release that you're excited for. I mean, Cormac McCarthy's book just came out, and people want to hold that in their hand. They want that. So, and little kids, children's books are never going to be 100% digitized, because do you really want your toddler to be chewing on the corner of your e-reader? Children's board books, we know that they get destroyed in bathtubs, they get destroyed in these things.
Right.
But it's much more cost effective to replace a $7 board book than it is to replace a $100 digital device.
So it sounds as if you've been with books, had an interest in books for a long time. So from your interest in books and your bookstore, were you the person that came up with the idea of artists coming in and building like a restaurant that people will get, coffee and other things? Was that your idea?
Yeah, so I had the initial concept for the whole kit and caboodle, but um, Tika and Donnell had always had an idea to do a similar thing for artists, specifically artists and musicians, where I was wanting to blend it with the bookstore. So I always thought it's a full service restaurant and cafe in the envelope of a bookstore. And so it really took it took all of us to put our heads together to come up with taking it from just the concept to how is this really going to function. And each of us brings something unique to the table for how this place stays alive. Donnell works for an environmental law firm, and she works in communications. She really understands sort of the back end of what needs to happen with social media and all this kind of thing. So she really had the ability to bring her technical savvy and know-how, and she's very down to earth to the table. And Tika is a musician, and she's also an artist, and we're all writers. All three of us are writers. And she's well connected within the community of other creative people. So it really took all of us kind of saying, like, how do we want this to work? But in terms of the initial concept, the initial idea, that was me. I held a meeting in my living room when we heard that Out North at that time was closing. They have since reopened, which has been lovely. But we had heard that they were closing, and Donnell had previously worked at Out North as their executive director. Tika had run her own magazine called F Magazine, and was based out of the Out North building. So when that closed, and I kind of sent out a general call. I said, come to my house. What are we going to do about this? I have an idea. And I think with the right support and the right people, this could be something really special. And they came to that meeting, and then we talked further and said, all right, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So it took a lot of work, but we made it happen.
From your understanding, is there a lot of venues throughout the lower 48 that does things that you do?
There are a few. In fact, I think there's one in New York called, is it Spotty Dog? I think the Spotty Dog Bookstore and Cafe. There's also one in Washington, D.C. called Poets and Busboys, or Busboys and Poets, Poets and Busboys. And I know that the concept of the bookstore cafe is not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination. Bookstores and cafes have run together, like, for a very long time. But I don't know that this particular kind of venue that is both performance space, art display space. We have a second Saturday event where we bring in a new artist every month to hang their work on the walls. So where we have combined the visual arts, the literary arts, the music arts, along with great food. I don't know how common that is. I know it exists, and like I said, I
Mhm.
know of a couple places, but I don't know. Um, I don't know how common it is out, out in the world. I don't know.
So this is really a terrific conversation. And coming from New York, I kind of think, oh God, it must be pretty, pretty difficult to live in Alaska because we're not used to that much cold and that much snow. So what's your spring and summer season? 2 weeks?
Well, it feels like that. So spring here is typically in May. And, May is a beautiful month all over the world. Like, no matter whether it's your spring or your fall, May is a beautiful month. June tends to be our most summery month with the
Mhm.
most sunshine and the warmest weather. July can go either way. July can be really beautiful, hot and sunny, or it can be rainy, super rainy. And then August is definitely our fall. So our autumn starts in August and goes into September. It's possible to have snow pretty much anytime after mid-September. There's no get the temperature starts dropping rapidly. We say we definitely spring into summer and you fall plummet into winter.
Right.
Um, so once it's here to stay for a while. And summer is brief but glorious. it's it's
So
every
there's not much swimming then.
Outdoor swimming, no. I mean, there are a few people who I think are a little bit nutty who will venture into the natural bodies of water. Um, I am not one of them.
Mhm.
I am not. You won't catch me swimming in the ocean, but I've seen a couple of crazy kids out there. And we do have surfers that will surf in Turnagain Arm. We have a board tide that comes in, and in the summertime, you'll see surfers that surf the big wave that comes in the after, well, whatever time of day it comes in with the high tide. But no, and almost always wearing wetsuits or dry suits. Like you wouldn't go swimming in that water, you know.
So this has been a great, great conversation. This is Local Everywhere. I'm Cynthia Pooler. I've been talking to Farrah Mars, right?
Mark.
Maris.
Uh-huh. There you go.
And if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Farrah, it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day.
Thank you so much for having me.